So, we are officially in week 5, Tuesday, and we're going to talk about GUIs. Okay, and what's a GUI? GUI stands for Graphical User Interfaces, and Java makes it pretty easy to do those. So we've already done some dialog boxes, little windows would pop up, ask you to enter stuff into them, that kind of stuff. And this thing is, we're going to take that to the next level. All right. And usually, basically, the procedure is you make the thing, right? You make the GUI, make sure it shows up. It's not really going to be able to do anything. It's just going to look pretty on the screen. And then you're going to associate events with it. So let's say you're going to have a button. You click on the button, nothing happens. Then we're going to associate an event with the button. And then when you click the button, something's going to happen. So that's the idea usually. All right. And this is different from the way that programs have been running up to this point. It's all in the command line. You have to wait for it to tell you, okay, please enter this, and you enter something, and then it goes a certain way. And these GUIs, you can have a bunch of buttons, and it's just sitting there waiting for you, and then it's only going to do something if you make an event, or if you click on it, or if you press a button, or something like that. Okay? All right. There's container hierarchy. There's different objects. Basically, it's all objects. You know, the cool thing about Java is you have objects, right? So a bunch of objects on top of other objects. You can put an object inside of another object inside of another object. So for example, right here, this window itself is one object. Okay, that's the mainframe. Okay, the mainframe is one object. Then inside that mainframe, we have this little window. See the little black borders that's inside here, right? That is another object, right? That is the content pane. And inside the content pane, we can add a bunch of other things. So you can go and so on top of this object, you have another object. Inside of it, you have another object, and then so on and so on. There's a hierarchy of objects. Okay. How are these objects going to respond to the events that you're going to give them? It's all part of Java. Java has ways to recognize if you clicked on something, if you have a checkbox, if the checkbox is selected, if you have a radio button, if the button has been clicked. All those different events that you could possibly do to a GUI, Java handles it. All you got to do is you have to tell it what to do when you do something. Okay? So, there's top level containers, the frame, the dialog, there's intermediate level containers, and there's atomic level containers. Okay, components. So at the levels level, which you're seeing in this little picture that I had here, right? There's just one button. So this is on the lowest level. This is the atomic. There's this whole thing is one big button that fills up the whole screen. You can have labels, text boxes, all kinds of different things. Basically, those are like the final things that go inside. Okay, and you can look at page 483, table 9.2, for more of these. Okay, all right. So the content pane. All right, the content pane is the window. Basically, the content pane is this black border. That's what I told you. Inside of that content pane is where we're going to put all these other objects like buttons, text boxes, all that good stuff. Okay. You can also add menus and stuff like that. I'm not going to show you how to do menus, right? You can do that on your own if you like, but we'll do plenty of other GUIs besides the menus. There's ways to organize these objects. So inside of the content pane, you can put multiple buttons, and how they're arranged on the screen is using these layout managers, which are just part of Java again. You can tell it organize everything like in a north sort kind of way. You can tell it organize everything in a grid, like a table with rows and columns, which is what we're going to be using for the final project. Okay? All right. So I'm not putting any of these programs visible, so basically you're going to have to go in there and type them up. That's the best way to learn these. Go through the chapter, type up all the programs, make sure they work, and then you can do the assignments. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm doing this in order. This is program 9.2 on page 490. It's called First Window Java. And now I'm going to actually start using Eclipse, right? This is Eclipse, okay? And inside Eclipse, basically you can create a new project. You're going to go File, New, Java Project. When you create the Java project, it's going to create this kind of a structure here. You're going to have a src folder, and inside it there's going to be a default package folder. And all I did was I basically went in there, I downloaded all my Java programs, and I just went in there and I dragged and dropped them right in here. Okay, just like that. And then when I do that, let me put it back, right? When I do that, and it just fills up the screen with all these different Java programs. So what I'm going to do is, and first, of course, you want to test this thing, make sure that the whole thing works. I created a new file called, so I go File, New, Class, and as soon as I make a new class, it's going to ask me, it's going to pop up like a little window here. I tell it something like second, and then as soon as I do this, then it's going to create a file called second.java, and in there I'm just going to go in there, I'm going to fill up, you know, it automatically does this for me. I'm going to write this stuff just to test it, to make sure it works. I already tested it, but let's do it again. You're going to press this little play button right here, and it's going to show the thing on the bottom, right? So you no longer have to do Java C and then Java to compile it and run it from the command line. All right, so I'm going to close this now that I know it works, and I'm going to go in there and do the first window.java. So first window.java, open this thing up. Okay, so one reason that I really like Eclipse, and by the way, there's other IDEs that you can use. There's another one called IntelliJ IDEA. This one's really good too. But I kind of like Eclipse a little better, even though it's a pain to get started with. Sometimes if it doesn't work right off the bat, it's really hard to configure it. Most of the times though, you just have to download. You go to Eclipse. Where's my Eclipse? Let's just do this. Eclipse Java, right? So just Google Eclipse Java, go to Eclipse Downloads, and then just download the one. It will automatically recognize what operating system you're running. You want to get yourself the one that's Eclipse IDE for Java developers. This one here is for enterprise developers. We're not doing any enterprise stuff. So then you just go and you download the thing for you, right? I have already downloaded it. You just install the thing. And for Windows, it's just a zip file. You download the zip file. You unzip the file, if you know how to do that. Marissa doesn't. And you're going to go in there and just run the thing and it works. Okay? Hopefully. And then once it works, it looks like this. Alright, so let's have a look at this. Yeah, font size is a little smaller, but we can see it, right? And by the way, Eclipse is such a pain to configure that it's hard to change the font color of this. Okay, if you try to do like Control Plus or try to expand it, oh, that actually worked. I can zoom in with the squeezing the mouse pad. Okay, so anyway, but actually changing the font size of this is kind of a pain. Anyway, all right. So first of all, I have a class fourth window which extends JFrame. Okay, I have to include Java Swing. And I have to include Java AWT event. Okay, this is going to be for my event handlers. I'm not going to have a whole lot of events initially. Okay, so this is my first window. And let's see what happens with this thing. So if I run this thing, let's see what it looks like. This is the window. Okay, fourth window. No wonder, wrong one. I'm looking for the first window. First window. Right? There's a whole lot of stuff in there, okay? There's a little less. Okay, so this is my first window. If I run this thing, there's my first GUI. Notice this text right here is this thing that shows up on top. What is the JFrame, private JFrame mainframe? That's this screen right here. This whole window is the mainframe or JFrame. Okay, so just like you would do int num1, I'm just saying JFrame mainframe. So mainframe is the variable name. Basically, I'm calling this window mainframe. Then when I initialize it, when I start a new window, I just put the text in there. That's this. And underneath it, I have set size 300 by 150. These are the dimensions of the window. Width 300, height 150. These are pixels. And I say set visible true. This piece is a little bit different from the book. I think the book does something like mainframe.show or something like that. Use this. Okay? Huh? No, it doesn't. It doesn't use set visible. The book uses something else. Okay? But use the set visible true. Alright, so now if I close this program, and by the way, it would be good if I went and I showed you how this works in the command line. Alright, so I'm going to go open up the terminal. We're going to do Java, we're going to go cd downloads. Okay? And I'm going to run Java C first window. Window Java. Java first window. Right? And if I run this thing, notice what's going to happen when I close it. So I'm going to go in there, I'm going to close the window. Nothing happens. It looks like the program keeps running. And that's what happens with these GUIs. Right? I have closed the window. The operating system knows what happens when you click the little X so that the window goes away. But the Java program itself has not received the message telling it end yourself. Okay, so that's why the program is actually still running. That's why I wanted to run it from the command line, because you can't really tell the difference from Eclipse. So I'm going to do Control C to kill this thing. Right? So now I stop the program from the command line. Okay, so let's have a look at this. When I run it here, you're not going to be able to tell really what the difference is. Right? So here's my window, here's me closing the window. The program still keeps running, so I have to press the little terminate thing, so the program stops. Okay? So the reason the program doesn't stop is because I haven't told it to stop yet. Okay? So this is my first window. The next one is the first Gui Java, which is pretty much the same thing as my first window. The only thing that I have done different is in here everything is inside my main, and this other one I had a variable mainframe inside of the class. I had a constructor, and then I basically just told it, okay, make a new constructor right here. Making a new constructor automatically called all this stuff in here, which is the same as doing this stuff. If I put all this stuff inside my main, this code is pretty much as, this line right here and these three lines combined inside the main. Okay, so the effect of this is going to be pretty much the same. If I run it, it's going to show up this little screen, and if I close it, it's not going to know to end the program, so I have to go in there and manually click this little thing to terminate the program. So now it's ended. Alright, so next thing that we're going to do, and let's follow the little, the book. So I showed you the first window Java, the first Gui Java. Okay? The next thing what we're going to do is we're going to add a window closing event handler. Okay, so now I'm going to go look at second window Java, which is also in your book, right? See program 9.3 for details. So we're going to go in there. Let me close this. Not Eclipse. I don't know where it is. Wait, I gotta close this maybe. Quit. There you go, now it's gone. Okay, so I'm going to second window Java. So second window is this right here. Okay, second window is going to be very similar to your first window. Right, remember this, same, remember these, same. The thing that's different is these two lines right here. So I'm saying, okay, win handler is equal to new win handler. What is the win handler? Win handler is this class right here, which implements window listener. What is window listener? It's like a class that's built into Java that can listen to things that are part of the window. Okay? Because I'm telling it that it's going to implement window listener, I have to go in there and include all these different things which are part of the window listener class. Okay, so window listener is basically an interface class. What's an interface? Interface is a class with just a bunch of method definitions and nothing in them. And when you implement an interface, Whenever you have the word implements, that means you're working with an interface, and I'll give you some examples when we get to that. But for now, basically, you just have to include all these different things because they're part of the window listener class. So there's different events that can happen when the window is closed, window is open, and all kinds of different things. Activated, deactivated. When you click on the window and it's active, that's activated. When you click away from it, that's deactivated. Okay? And the cool thing about Eclipse is notice how it provides explanations. So when you mouse over some of these different things, it will tell you what this is and how to use it most of the times. Okay? So this one is we're using the window closing event invoked when the user attempts to close the window from the Windows system menu. Or when I click the little X, the window is being closed. What are we going to do when that happens? We're going to tell it system exit. So that means we're going to exit the program when you click the X button. Now when I run this thing, and I close this, you notice the program terminates automatically. I don't have to click the little red button there. Okay? So all we did was we created a class called WinHandler, which implements window listener, and inside there we put through all this stuff. We have to include all of them, even though we're only going to write code for this one little piece right here. Okay? So that is, now we have our first event. Okay? Next thing, let's go to the next one here. Okay? And event handler is an object that responds properly when an event occurs, right? So when you hit the close button, that's what happens. Okay. The next thing is we're going to look at third window. Okay, so let's have a look at third window. How is third window different from the second window? Open up third window. Okay, this business is the same. This one here is a little shorter, right, than this one here. I just basically put this stuff, I put this inside there. Okay? And that's what this is. Okay? The other thing is, this time I'm doing something slightly different. This one here was class WinHandler implements window listener. So when I say implement, it means I'm dealing with an interface. And again, what is an interface? It's a class with a bunch of blank methods. And whenever I'm dealing with something, whenever I'm saying that I'm going to implement an interface, I have to write all the methods that are part of that interface. But in this one here, I'm saying extends. Extends means we're going to have, this one here was a window listener. This one here is a window adapter. They're both classes, okay? So this class is already built by Java developers. It contains all kinds of different classes, methods. One of these methods is the window closing, okay? And I'm going to use this method only. So when I say extends, I can use only the method. I can use only the methods that I need to use. When I say implements, I have to use all the different methods that are part of this class or interface. Okay, so I just shortened it. The effect will be still exactly the same as before. And if I run this program, I run it, you're going to see there's your second window. Right? Second window, I'm going to close this thing, and program ends. So the effect of third window is the same as the effect of second window. Right? When we click the little X, program ends. Okay? And which way would you use? Which one would I use? Obviously this one, because it's just much shorter code. Okay, so that's that. The next thing is I have a fourth window. Let's have a look at the fourth window. So this was third window, fourth window. Fourth window is going to use an inner class. So if this class used to be outside, so this is where my public class third window ends, and this other class here was outside of that class. All I did for the fourth window is I grabbed this thing and I put it inside of this class. So this is an inner class. Other than that, it's exactly the same thing, right? I'm going to run it. If I close the window, it ends the program, right? So third window, fourth window, pretty much the same thing. Okay? Next. Fifth window. Fifth window does it slightly differently. Oops, that's first window. Where's fifth window? Fifth window. Okay, so this is your fourth window. We had a class here, right? The fifth window is basically going to grab this stuff and it's going to put it right in here. Okay? So look what we're doing. Mainframe, add window listener, and then I'm adding all this stuff right inside the add window listener piece. Right? Where's the add window listener? So this here, instead of just doing this here and then writing my class here, we're basically grabbing this whole thing, right? This whole stuff and putting it inside there. Right? And that's called anonymous inner class. Why is it anonymous? Because I didn't even give it a name. Here this class was called winHandler, extends blah blah blah. Here, I don't have a name for that thing. Okay? So that's an anonymous class. Okay? And this is going to have the same exact effect as the third window, the fourth window, the fifth window. They're all the same pretty much. When you close the program, the whole thing ends. So far so good? Okay. So this is the fifth window. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add a button. When we first phase is you add the button, run the program, make sure it shows up, make sure it works. Next phase is do something with the button. So when you click the button, something will happen. So let's have a look at the first button. Let me close these other ones, or I'll leave them open. So first button. Okay, so the new things in this one are, now I'm creating a new variable called first B. What is first B? First B is a J button. What is a J button? It's just like a built-in thing into Java, right? It's a button. Okay, so there's going to be a variable for a button, just like I created my, let me just run it so you can see it. Right? This is my, so before, let's go back to this thing real quick. So if I run this thing, there's nothing in here, right? When I run this thing here, I have placed a button in there, right? I can click it. You can see that I'm clicking it. Nothing happens because I haven't associated an event with it. So, all right, this little text here, example of a GUI with a button, that's this. That's the JFrame label. The press me, that is the text that I have here for the button. And this here, container C mainframe get content pane. Remember how I told you the content pane is going to be whatever's inside here, right? So this piece on top is just the mainframe. Whatever's inside this little window underneath, that is your content pane. So I'm getting the content pane. I'm putting it into a variable of the container type. Container is just contains other things. And then I'm going to tell it C add first B. So all I'm doing is I'm telling it add the button first B to my content pane. Okay? Alright. The next thing is setting the size. All the window adapter stuff is the same as before. And the only thing that's going to function in this thing here is if I close the button. Okay, if I close the window. So I close the window, the program ends. Alright? So that's that one. First button. The next one is button GUI2. Let's have a button GUI2. Button GUI2 is pretty much the same thing. The only thing that we're adding to this is we're adding tooltip text. Okay, so if I run this thing, okay, this thing, button GUI2, is pretty much the same as the other one, except if I mouse over this, it tells you this is a button. This is the only thing that I added. That's the set tooltip text. This is a button. So when I mouse over, it tells you this is a button. Sometimes you might want to tell you something else, like what's the shortcut. There's also a mnemonic. What is the mnemonic? Mnemonic is like a short key. I think it's Alt P. No, it's Control P, Command P. I don't know what it is. Alt. Yeah, it's Alt. Notice when I do Alt, it highlights this. And then if I do P, you can't see it doing anything, but believe it, it's like being pressed. Okay? That's it. Not very important, but just other ways to interact with this. the button still doesn't do anything. Okay, all I did was add a tooltip and add a mnemonic, which is a shortcut, right? All right, so this is my button GUI 2. And then finally, what we're going to do is now we're going to do an event for my button, and this is the last one, button GUI 3. I go in there, let's have a look at the button GUI 3. Button GUI 3 is going to be the same thing as this one, except, bless you, Marissa, now what we're going to do is we're going to add an event handler for the button itself. Okay, so I'm saying but event handler, which is just the class that I defined here, right? This class implements action listener, and inside this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a public void action performed action event E, and basically this thing happens when it detects some kind of a event on the button. So right here is my button. I'm telling it add action listener, which one is going to be my action listener? The B handler, which is of this class here, of this class type. So basically the end result is when I run my program and it shows the little button, and if I press the button, there's going to be a little dialog box that show up that's going to tell me button was pressed, like this. Okay? So that's the event, and that's the process of doing these GUIs. Okay? If it looks confusing, you got to go in there and you got to type up all these sample programs that are in the chapter. Go through every one of them. You're going to see, it's going to make a lot more sense. That's the reason why I haven't posted these files, because that way you're forced to type them up. Okay? So that's what you have to do. For this week's, or for Tuesday, this week, you're going to have to do this kind of stuff. For what we're going to do for Thursday, it's going to be chapter 4. And chapter 4 deals with more of these things, but I'm going to show you what to do if you have a bunch of buttons. So for right now, what we had to do is we had to write a class for everything that we need to do, right? So if I have one button, I need one class. If I'm going to do a second button, I need another class. For your project, the tic-tac-toe, you're going to have 9 buttons. You don't want to go and create 9 classes. I'm going to show you how to do that on Thursday. Okay? So, a couple more things. This is the implements versus extends business. So I can show you a little bit more in detail of what that means. So interface. What is an interface? It's basically like a class. Remember how I told you with just a bunch of blank methods. So I haven't defined what they do. It's just I said, okay, there's going to be these methods in this class, and that's it. That's an interface, a class with a bunch of blank methods. Okay? And example of how you implement a class, right? So first of all, how do you implement an interface? So in there, and I've basically just made this super simple. So I have a file called inter.java, and in that file is a public interface inter, which is just like a class with a bunch of blank methods. There's nothing in them. Okay? This class now, the inter.java, is going to be implemented by another class. So this one here is called test inter Java. We have a public class test inter implements, right? The implements is so that you can implement the interface. What does that mean? You're going to go in there and you're going to define what the different methods are supposed to do. So this is the do some method, and there's going to be another method which is do this, right? Which is this other method in there. And then when I call, when I create an object, well, I'm going to call it test inter TL. Test inter is this class name is equal to new test inter. I can call these methods and do something with them. Okay, so this is similar to what we did with, which one was it? I'm going to go, which button? Button first, button GUI 2. Let's go first GUI, no, third window, second window, yeah, there you go. So see how this thing implements? So this thing implements an interface, and I had to go in there and include all the methods that are in it. If I just went in there and I commented this out, just like that, notice Eclipse automatically starts complaining. Tells you, oh, you have added unimplemented methods. So basically, if I have an interface like this one here, I have to implement all the methods that are part of the original interface. Even if I just created a definition with nothing in it, which is what I'm doing here, you still have to implement all of the methods that are part of that interface. Okay? All right. So the next thing is now how you extend a class. All right. Extending a class basically means you already have a fully functioning written class for something, and you're going to inherit its properties. Okay, you can redefine the properties of the class or how the class is going to function, the methods, but you don't have to. So this is my class. I'm calling it public class superclass, and it's saved in a file called Superclass Java. Right? In this class, I have two methods. Get MB, and which returns 1, and then get MB2, which returns 2. That's it, right? Just really basic stuff. Okay? Now in here, I'm going to have a subclass which extends the superclass. Okay, in the subclass, I can redefine what this method is doing. But I don't have to go and include all the different methods in there, just like I did with the other example. Okay? So when you're extending a class, you can overwrite the superclass's methods, but you don't have to, right? If you want the superclass to work the way it was, don't overwrite it. Leave it the way it is. You just use it, okay? Now I'm going to do another class, test sub and superclass, okay? So in here, I have a subclass, S is equal to new subclass, right? And by the way, all these files are in the same folder. And then in there, I'm going to say s.getMB. Okay, first of all, subclass. Notice that the subclass does not have a method called getMB. Right? Where's this coming from? It's coming from the superclass. Okay, so the superclass, this subclass extends the superclass, which means that now it has access to the superclass's methods, which is how I can call this method through the subclass, right? So subclass s get MB is actually calling the method which is inside the superclass. That's what we're doing when you extend something. Okay? In here, s get MB, when I do this, because I overwrote what MB means for the subclass, it's going to return 3. Okay, if I did not override this, then it would return this. Okay? Alright, and then let's look at the superclass. Superclass is equal to new superclass, so now I'm creating a variable called sup, which is of this class type. So that now when I call this method, getMB2, it's not going to return 3 like I did with the subclass, it's going to return 2. Why is it 2? Because that's the default thing that was part of the superclass. Okay? And that in a nutshell is what an interface is, what does it mean, what it means to be extending versus implementing. Okay? So, any questions? Alright. So other than this, I have a little something in here on, getting you started with Eclipse, but again, it's just a matter of going to the eclipse.org, downloading the thing, and getting it to work. Okay? So the most important thing is, for you to do, is you got to go in there and type up all these different sample programs. Make sure that every one of them works, and then little by little, you're going to teach yourself by doing all this other stuff. Okay? So, that's all I have. I'm going to not save these, close them all, and that's it. So I highly recommend that at this point, chapter 9, chapter 10, start using Eclipse, because it will help you with, whenever you write things, you go in there, you can say, oh, what's JFrame? Oh, creates a new initially invisible frame with the specified title. Well, there's your title, right? What is set size? Oh, resizes this component so it has width and height, right? And if you scroll down, it'll even give you some examples, right? What are the parameters? Well, one is width, one is height. So if you start doing this, main frame dots, and then also it has this stuff. So as soon as I start, so this is a main frame, which is an object of the frame type. Eclipse already knows what are the methods that are available for it. As soon as you do dot, it starts offering you all those different things that are part of this. Right? So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to do set size. Right? There's my set size. There's different set sizes. Notice there's one of this. There's another one of these. Right? So how is the set size? Well, it has a width and a height. Right? So it pretty much explains to you how to use every one of these different methods. You don't have to go and Google it. It's part of the Eclipse. Okay, so that's why I'm recommending highly Eclipse. Also, if there's something wrong with your code, let's say I forgot a semicolon. Right? It automatically highlights things for you. Right? Syntax, error, insert, semicolon to complete the statement. So it makes your life easier. Okay? The reason I wanted you to write your codes in the command line and in a basic text editor so that you don't use this as a crutch to help you with all this stuff. Okay, it's better for you to learn this way. But now that we're at the GUIs, it really makes sense to just switch to this. And that's all I have to say about that. I'm not going to save this either. And I'm going to post this video for you also. And that's all I have for today.